Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Fatia. I'm a third group of psycholinguistic, and I'm as first speaker. I want to explain you about interlanguage. So, what is interlanguage? Interlanguage is type of language or linguistic system used by second language and foreign language learners who are in the process of learning a target language. And usually this is type of speech for writing people produce when they are learning a new language. So it means, okay, so I know that you know about interlanguage before, because as we know that our lecture Memega have been told at us about interlanguage. So interlanguage have, but I want to sharing you my another experience or another knowledge of my own, that interlanguage have another names of interlanguage. We can call that is idiosyncratic system, learner's language, or approximative system. So that was another names of interlanguage. But the important things that interlanguage is the type of language produced by second and foreign language learners who are in the process of learning a language. That was interlanguages. So, where does interlanguage is the next? The next is, where does the interlanguage theories comes from? As I know that interlanguage theories came from is generally credited to Larry Selinker, an American professor of applied linguistics, which the article in interlanguage period in the January 1972 issues of the journal International's Review of Applied Linguistics and Language Teaching. So that was interlanguage theories come from. And the next is, I want to tell you about the characteristic of interlanguage. I know there isn't in our PPT, because I just want to share you about the characteristic in interlanguage. There are three characteristics in interlanguage. The first is systematic, the second is dynamic, and the last is variable. What is systematic itself? Systematic is when learner have systems of rules. I mean that the system can be observed when studying the utterance of the learners who attempts to produce meaning in their L2 speech aid. You know L2 and L1, right? And the second is dynamic. It means that although the systematic itself is the systematic role itself, it can be changed. That is dynamic. So it's the role systematic. The role it can be changed. And the last is variable. Variable is learnings depends on the type of input and context in which the students receive language. So that the last of the characteristic in interlanguages. Okay, so the last is, I want to review about what is interlanguage. The first is actually a type of speech or writings people produce when they are learning a new language. And the second is, every interlanguage is unique. And the third is, it is not anyone's first language. So the fourth is, it contains element of speaker original language. And the last is, the sentence of the interlanguage can be error analysis. Okay, so now I want to explain you the relationship between interlanguage and error analysis. When we say interlanguage, you know that foreign language learns another language, like that. So error analysis it's happen in interlanguage when foreign language or learners have been said the wrong word or wrong sentence in their speaking. I mean, error analysis is interlanguage error analysis. It's happen when learners of foreign language use the wrong word or wrong sentence. It's like I'll give you some example, like she go to school. I mean, the right one is she goes to school, right? So but sometimes learners always say it over and over about that wrong sentence. So we can call that was error. Okay, so that is error analysis. So that is interlanguage, relationship between interlanguage and error analysis. Okay, thank you. That was my explanation about interlanguage. I mean, I'm so sorry if there is something wrong in my explanation, because as you know, I'm not really perfect as a lecturer, so just my knowledge about the interlanguage. So thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ayuwardani. Now I will explain the next material about interlanguage theory. In interlanguage theory, there are 7 principles. The first principle is about the learner construct a system of abstract linguistic rule. What is abstract linguistic rule? This is like interlanguage phonology, morphology, syntax, vocabulary, and interlanguage pragmatics. And then the second principle, the language learner grammar is permeable. And the second language learner competence is transitional or step by step. The principle tell us, and the next principle, the principle tell us that the learner competence is variable and any stage of development. So that's many development and have many stage. Interlanguage is claimed to be language in its own right. Learner language varies much more than native speaker language. Selinker notes that is then in a given situation, the utterance produced by the learner of different from those native speaker would produce if they attempt to convey this some meaning. It's like, for example, learner may produce a target like variant, I don't, and one context, one target like variant, me no. For example, like I don't and me no in another. That's different tradition. And then the interlanguage, the next principle, interlanguage development reflects the operation of cognitive learning strategies. And then interlanguage can also reflect the operation of communication strategies. And then the last, interlanguage may facilitate or case developing. In any of this development stage, facilitation is the process of phrasing, of the transition between the native speaker and second language, and is regarded as the final stage of interlanguage development. It can occur even in motivated learners who are continuously exposed to their second language or have the adequate learning support. Jadi sebuah antarbahasa bisa menjadi fosil atau berhenti berkembang dalam setiap tahap perkembangannya. Fosilisasi itu adalah proses pembekuan transisi antara native speaker dan second language, dan dianggap sebagai tahap akhir pengembangan antar bahasa. Nah, itu merupakan fosilisasi. And then fossilization occurs often in adult language learner. It can also occur when learners success in conveying message with their current second language knowledge. The need to correct the form or structure is therefore not present. Learners fossilize the form instead of correcting. So that's all seven principle interlanguage theory. Continue the next material.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Here I want to tell you about error analysis. Error analysis is an activity to reveal errors found in writing and speaking. Error analysis also is the study of errors made by the second and foreign language learners. Error analysis may be carried out in order to first find out how well someone knows a language, and then the second, find out how a person learns a language, and the third or the last is obtain information on common difficulties in language learning as an aid in teaching or in the preparation of teaching material.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Lisa. Here I want to explain you about interlanguage and error analysis. So I will tell you about the last material before I explain you about procedure of EA. Before that, we have known about the definition of error analysis. So now we have to know how to find of error analysis. So guys, there are some steps to know how to find of error analysis. So the first is selection of a corpus of language. So we have to select a data where is an error or no in that language. And the second is identification of errors in the corpus. So after we select the data where is an error word or sentence, after that we identification the one errors in the data or corpus. And the third is classification. After we identification where is an error, where is not error, so now we have to classification. We have to choose one of the errors. So we choose just errors data or errors in the corpus, like that. After classification, we have to explain. In the first steps is explanation of the psycholinguistic causes of errors. So why there is explanation? Because we have to know why this case, why this word and why this sentence can be error data or error sentence, like that. So there is sign in an error sentence or not error sentence, like that. So we have to explain why can be error in sentence itself. And the last is evaluation in evaluation or error gravity ranking of the errors. So we have two conclusion, we have two calculation, how many percent in one writing in or in one speaking, how many percent there is error data, or we have to make a gravity ranking. So after before we analysis and after we analysis in error itself, like that. So thank you. I'm sorry if there is mistake, and thank you. I'm sorry if there is mistake. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.